Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kasterborous. My name is Christian Cawley. He is James McLean. We are here to discuss Doctor Who because we we talk about Doctor Who quite a lot because this is ostensibly a Doctor Who podcast. And over the past few weeks, we've been talking
We've
about
tried to change that, but demographically, no one allows us to.
no one will let us. And over the past few weeks, we've been talking about the idea of Doctor Who's existence in the 21st century and what that means and the changing televisual and streaming landscape and what would happen if Doctor Who required rebooting. Now, it might be said that we picked the wrong horse there. Theoreticals are fine anyway, and there is also the question of rebooting to happen anyway.
So, I mean, I saw this on your Instagram post as well. What did we get wrong?
It's more or less some of the framing that I use for actually editing the podcasts down. The last long conversation you and I had, editing that into two podcasts, which were basically about rebooting Doctor Who, and the previous ones about the world of Doctor Who continuing in a world where it's not on TV, where it is on TV. So that bit was wrong. Although it's not on TV at the moment, and it's going to be kind of 18 months between series.
I don't think we were wrong. I think because we were speculating. I don't think we ever speculated. I certainly, from my part, I don't know about you, but I never thought that Doctor Who was gone.
I don't think it was gone. I just thought there might be a slightly longer pause than it appears that we're getting. But then, I mean, we're talking 18 months or so between episodes. It might be another 18 months after that, depending on who else is involved.
We never. I mean, because we were talking more about hypothetical about how it could conceivably continue as the landscape changes, and the landscape is still changing.
Yes,
and that's not to say that. And we never said it wouldn't, so it would stop. But we were saying it's becoming increasingly hard for it to maintain its longevity when its audiences and the way that it's distributed is changing. So I don't think we've been wrong.
No, we certainly weren't talking about axes swinging. No.
Yeah, but I think there's been as we're going to talk about a couple of things that come up this week, which I certainly wasn't anticipating, which was again this notion that Jane Tranter said the other day that until they'd aired everything, the 26, that there would be no decision made with Disney. That was kind of the
yes,
as I recall it, that is what she said in that interview. And then like a week later, we've got in the situation we are now.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't very long ago. So a few days ago, midweek, Doctor Who. Doctor Who didn't make an announcement because he's not a real person. The BBC announced that Doctor Who will return with this Christmas special.
It's the Doctor, isn't it?
It's let's not get into that. The BBC confirmed that Doctor Who will return with a Christmas special in 2026 to be written by Russell T Davies, although there is some kind of it's not actually stated, but there is a kind of implication that that's all he's writing, and a further implication elsewhere that that's it as far as RTD is concerned, and maybe also Bad Wolf.
So sorry, where's this come from?
There's a discussion that refers to it on DWC, and I think it's from Deadline, but I'm not 100% certain. But you've read Deadline, haven't you? So
I've read I've seen some of the recent stuff. I've not heard about this suggestion that Bad Wolf is over it or RTD is over it. The latter I could imagine, the former I would be very surprised.
I would be surprised as well, given the amount of investment they've had, not just from with BBC and Disney, but also I think there was the Sony Television Pictures as well was involved, weren't they? So it says Russell T Davies has agreed to write us another spectacular Christmas special. We've also got The War Between the Land and the Sea coming this Christmas on BBC One, as well as on BBC iPlayer. There is still the CBeebies thing happening as well, the cartoon. And so it's largely positive news, which is good because positive news is obviously very good. But it is positive, as I say, but there is this whole thing. I mean, we'll get into the Disney thing and what's happened there or whatever and streaming in a moment. But I mean, it does kind of make a bit of a mockery of this whole, you're going to be getting Doctor Who every year now, doesn't it? Or a new series every year, because really it's not a new series every year. It's like an episode next year, and then who knows after
But
that.
but then again, as we've just said, the landscape is continually changing,
Hmm.
and some of the things that have been speculated in the Deadline article um, sort of point towards that. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that they probably did anticipate going in for every year, but like I say, the world doesn't kind of work in that way all the time.
No,
If even on the very base level, I think losing Gatwa would have been a big, or issues around Gatwa will have changed that certainly. I mean, because as we know, is certainly for new Doctor Who, when they change actor, the production cycle is usually disrupted in some way. They don't sort of, correct me if I'm wrong on this. My brain is thinking this anyway, that we don't tend to sort of see a straight shift, or do we? I'm just trying to think. I suppose we. I'm trying to think now. I
well,
suppose
Eccleston
that's
to
not always true.
Tennant was pretty
I'm thinking
swift.
more sort of Moffat onwards.
Right,
Has it
okay.
always been a straight?
Well, Moffat had two doctors,
Hmm.
and then obviously Chibnall had one doctor, and Davies has managed to have possibly three, certainly two this time around.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just thinking that as soon as you have, I mean, you obviously got a lead cast change, and that obviously doesn't just disrupt for Doctor Who, especially. That's not just a change in casting, but it's also having to think about a change in, well, you're bringing in a new lead character essentially, who's going to be dressed differently, who's going to act differently, who's going to integrate and work both within the show and outside the show in different ways. So that tends to create a slowdown. I'm just thinking whether, in actual real terms, has it ever created a slowdown where it's been a little longer between series when you've got the actor change, and I'm not sure that's always been the case. As you say, maybe when you've got a production team change, but not so much when you've got actor change. But point being is there's a lot of disruption stuff which might just feed into this. Anyway, we carry on. I'm starting to
Yeah.
spiral.
Okay, he's going. He's going. Nurse. So uh, Philip Bates, our friend, has helpfully compiled a list of what we know and what we don't know about Doctor Who going forward. So what we know, Doctor Who will come back with a Christmas special in 2026. There will be no Christmas special this year. The special will be written by showrunner Russell T Davies. It will air on the BBC. It will be co-produced by Bad Wolf. An animated Doctor Who for CBeebies will debut early in, pre-production work begins in January 2026. Doctor Who spin-off, War Between the Land and the Sea, will air on the BBC before the end of this year. And Doctor Who does at least have a future. Now, what we don't know, these are the don't knows, all right? Whether this will be the last episode by Davies, it's hinted and rumoured that the upcoming episode will be his last. If a new series will be coming in 2027, though it's likely, who will be the new head writer? Will Bad Wolf continue to co-produce beyond the next episode? Will Billy Piper be the 16th Doctor? Who is the next Doctor? When will the episode air? The Smart Money is nonetheless on Christmas Day 2026. What really caused Disney Plus to pull out? We might talk about that shortly. If any new spin-offs are likely, God no, please. Let's just focus on the main show. I think, really, at this stage, I think maybe spin-offs beyond cartoons haven't really hit the target. If a new streaming partner will step into the fold, which services will mean Doctor Who can be watched in foreign territories after Disney Plus drops it? If David Tennant will be seen again, and whether a new companion called Petra will be introduced. So yeah, Disney Plus. There's, I mean, you shared something with me concerning Disney Plus and political machinations in the United States. That's
Well, it was more than that, to be fair. It was Deadline, I think it was, and
yeah,
they were basically highlighting through industry sources, industry sources, which actually might be legitimate. So maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Through industry sources, three key aspects which might have nixed the Disney Plus deal, and essentially you can grind them down to political, uh, financial, and audience reception in the States,
yeah,
which is not horrendously surprising. I think, as we've said before, as far as we were aware, according to one of our close contacts, that Doctor Who was doing quite well worldwide, but struggling in the UK and the States specifically, which obviously key markets for them with the Disney Plus deal. So that tracks. So we're not totally surprised about that. There was a sense that it had not been promoted properly. That was another insider point, that in terms of actually getting it had not succeeded. Well, that's I'm trying to think. So yes, so that was audience reception. So budget. So budget is that it's still quite an expensive show, as we've noted before in previous episodes of this, whatever this thing is. It is not the most expensive show on Disney Plus by a large margin.
No.
So it's not that sort of expensive, but it's still it's a cost, especially
and it's
given
a cost
that
of something that they don't own entirely as well.
Exactly. So it's something which is an unusual cost, which is not kind of like building their own property. It's a property that they are working in a deal with. So that kind of tracks as well. The other thing they said, and again, I don't know if there's any evidence towards this. I think we can probably say there is to a degree, but there are certain feelings in the States towards political leanings into the entertainment sphere, and distribution companies and production companies being kind of wary of that sort of sphere, and Doctor Who at the moment being quite a colourful, progressive, which could be interpreted as a left-leaning show in a country which has got a very staunch right-wing perspective in its government. It might just not fit within the content that Disney feels that they want to be, just that doesn't fit with that. So, I mean, I would say, as you were saying, Christian, in the message back to me, I don't think that is like the key thing at all. But I think you could probably argue there might be conversations around that, because we've seen in the last couple of months with South Park, with the Jimmy Kimmel. I always want to go Jimmy Fallon because they're similar in the fact they're both talk show hosts. Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert. There's been questions over intervention from the political arm of the country within entertainment. So I can see that being something that would be talked about. But like you said, I don't think this is the key thing, because I mean, there's a lot of colourful shows on Disney, but I imagine, is it a colourful show which costs a lot of money, which they don't own, which hasn't made a massive impact within their catalogue? I think when you combine all those sort of things, you can perhaps see why Disney might step back, and also why perhaps when the deal started, some of those things might not have been anticipated, not just simply the political spectrum, but also you don't know where it's going to land with audiences. You don't know. The only thing you can probably ascertain as being certain is how much it's costing each person, and then it's a question of how that everything else functions around that. So yeah, I wasn't expecting the decision to come prior to
so quickly, to
the Land and Sea, which was kind of suggested by Tranter, that would be decided after. But I suppose there is an argument that maybe from obviously we haven't seen it, but it has been done. It's now in the can. It's a space where Disney is in a position where they've now got essentially got the 26 episodes, and they've made, and the decision has been made on that basis. Well, in my head, I was kind of anticipating that they'd be looking after audience responses and how that's fit. 26 are fitted entirely as a whole thing within the views on Disney Plus. So yeah, we found it early, which I don't think is a bad thing, and I think that's been a good thing because it's allowed BBC and Bad Wolf to actually try and do some damage control here and actually demonstrate that the show is not under threat through this and will be continuing on, which has been obviously sort of James Tranter coming out on the radio the other week kind of demonstrates that that's been something which has been an issue, is this sort of negative press about where Doctor Who's going. So they've had an opportunity now to come out straight away and go, yeah, Disney Plus isn't going ahead, but hey, next year in Christmas time, there'll be new Doctor Who, which is, I think, largely being taken as a good thing. I know some people haven't, but I think it's been taken relatively well. I would suggest I do not see Bad Wolf stepping away from this. I think as an independent production company, they've had some good successes, which they've been what's a nicer word than crowing? Because crowing's not the word I want. which they've been proudly announcing or demonstrating
Yes.
on social media with little cartoons about how they've done some great stuff. Doctor Who is still a landmark show for the BBC across the world. It's one that is recognised and links to Britain and the BBC. To be the production company which manages that show, that's a good bit of branding and ongoing prestige for your company. I would be very surprised whether they would drop that unless they really had to, because that's, to me, that's crazy. In a highly competitive market, you don't want a competing independent production company to take it on. And also, from Bad Wolf's point of view, you want to keep it in Wales as well. You want to keep that Welsh thing going there too. So if you drop it,
Well,
most
especially because they
likely
get the funding.
exactly, it will shift back to you. It will shift back to England. I was going to say UK. How terrible! It will shift back to England. That's quite likely. Just for the landscape of where production companies are, rather than it being a sort of thing about nations. It would probably most likely be a production company, I'd have thought, in England that would take it. So it would fall out of Wales's hands. So I don't see at the moment a rationale for them to drop it unless there's a financial imperative or a logistical imperative, or the BBC.
Yeah. I just want to rake that up a little bit. Just jump into Bad Wolf a little bit. Bad Wolf is headquartered in Cardiff. It's founded by Julie Gardner and Jane Tranter. Its parent company, as of 2021, is Sony Pictures Television International Production. And it also has its own subsidiary, Bad Wolf America. So that's quite interesting to just get some context as to what Bad Wolf actually is and who's actually involved at Bad Wolf and where the money's coming from as well. Beyond that, and I mean, the streaming thing is key, isn't it? Because we know Doctor Who's going to be on BBC TV in the UK, but in other places that's not going to be the case. And I think you mentioned this a few months ago, and it's something that's really it's a point that's stuck with me since then, is that Doctor Who on Disney Plus is surrounded by lots of things that are like Doctor Who, and it's swimming in a sea of things that are like Doctor Who. Whereas there's a very strong argument that it might be better on Netflix, where there's fewer things that are exactly like Doctor Who, and a big thing that's quite like Doctor Who, or Amazon Prime, which has had pretty good track record with big titles, and BBC shows as well. In terms, Ripper Street moved to Amazon Prime, you'll recall, and changed. I mean, it kind of the Amazon Prime Ripper Street was, I think, was better than the BBC Ripper Street.
Yeah, it was certainly a solid back end, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it is going to have a streaming partner, isn't it? Because the BBC and the UK companies, Five, and well, obviously Five's not owned by a British company, and ITV and Channel 4, they seem very kind of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a kind of reverse Midas touch with everything that they kind of attempted to do in terms of creating a streaming presence worldwide, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sort of a unified streaming presence. So it's got to be with one of the big partners. If it's not going to be on Disney Plus, it's got to be Netflix or Amazon. It's not going to be Paramount. So
no, I mean, I'm not saying it should be, but I've been very impressed with Apple Plus's content.
Right.
I think it's probably arguably too small a space, but its content is less. There is a couple of sci-fi shows on there. Its content, but sorry, go on.
I mean, is that actually a natural home for Doctor Who? He's actually, no, I mean, I'm not taking the piss here. I mean, seriously, I'm thinking, you say it's smaller. I haven't touched Apple TV in years, since we actually had an Apple TV and had access to the Apple TV service. But Doctor Who and Apple are actually quite close. Douglas Adams was one of the first owners of an Apple computer in the UK.
Okay.
All right.
Here was I thinking there was going to be some sort of industrial connection you're going to make here, but we'll go with this.
No, go with it, because there are ethoses about different technology companies, and maybe Doctor Who's ethos is more closely matched with Apple than any of these others.
Well, I wouldn't I don't think it's about ethoses as well, because they're all just big
Well, maybe
corporate
they are now, yeah.
companies. But I think in terms of like, if we're looking at catalogs, which is what you were saying initially, I think Apple, and again, I feel like I'm starting to sound like a spokesperson for it, has quite a nice managed, diverse portfolio of material. It doesn't have the, the sheer, again, I'm going to use words I probably shouldn't, the sheer bloat of, say, Netflix or certainly Prime, which has a lot of filler stuff in Prime's catalog now. You do really feel like they treat it as a sort of, as really what it is, a way of getting you into getting Amazon Prime and using their shopping service. It's not their prime focus, not their prime direction. But Apple Plus does have a lot of very solid, high quality shows. A lot of them are very much their shows as well, are ones which they've got money into as well. And given that, we've seen like Slow Horses has done very well for Apple in terms of its British relations. I could see Doctor Who actually sitting quite well in there. You're right. It's a smaller catalog service, but it has prestige. It has prestige for things which are just not, which are unique. And I think that's the one thing I've noticed. And again, I feel like I'm doing them far too much of a service than any corporate entity deserves. But I've watched, they've got like Ted Lasso, which was excellent, Murderbot for sci-fi, which was excellent, Slow Horses, which has been a very good series. Watched Criminal Record with Peter Capaldi, which kind of focuses on the systemic racism that exists within British culture, specifically the police. That was a very good series as well. But they're all very, very different. So I think Doctor Who would sit really nicely in the catalogue and wouldn't be, as you say, like with Disney Plus, be sort of suffocated by these massive franchises of high-end, glossy, and often quite colourful shows, which is what Marvel have been doing over the last 10 years. They've been
Yep.
branching out into their sort of Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, and so has the Star Wars to a degree has had a bit of that too. So the sort of colourful zaniness of Doctor Who, as we were saying, just kind of gets lost in that sort of high level, high end sci-fi, high big budget shtick. So yeah, I think Apple Plus would be a good space for it. I think, as I say, Prime to me at the moment feels like Woolworths. I know we've made this analogy before, but back, if you were slightly older people, you'd go into Woolworths, there would be pick and mix, there would be clothes, there would be CD racks, there would be videos, but everything would feel fairly shoddy, as if everyone had handled it too many times.
Computer games
Cases would be sort of slightly more scratched, but just more expensive than our price down the road. That's kind of what Prime feels like to me at the moment. It feels like there's just not much love in there or care. It's just everything.
Yeah.
And Netflix obviously does have a bit of that as well, but seems to do it in a way which actually feels more like a Virgin Megastore. It feels
more curated.
More sort of, as I say, CD covers don't look scratched. Everything's in sort of proper, again, navigation. The navigation, I think, in Netflix is actually better than Prime. So it feels more like, a Virgin Megastore or Virgin or an R Price. Those sort of places had good navigation.
You can find what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Amazon's got a
everywhere.
big problem with that across the board at the moment. I've been talking about this with friends and colleagues on the smart home website that I edit. And because a lot of the products that we discuss, they're shipped via Amazon. And Amazon has a big stake in smart home. But actually going onto Amazon and searching for something is really hard to find what you're looking for. And that's across the board on the main Amazon. Going into TV Amazon, it's a little bit better. I've stumbled across some weird things on Amazon over the past few weeks. There's old British movies that I don't know if they're like Hammer or maybe ITV co-productions at some point or whatever. They've started appearing on Amazon Prime. Have you seen this?
Like you said, there's no real curation to Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So
Just
so it feels like you're in Woolworths and you found a bargain bin and you're just searching through it. At the bottom of the bargain bin, there's some kind of nice, good wins.
Yeah.
But you have to start digging into this dirty bargain bin to find it. And there's no, like, I think an interesting thing with all these, especially with the big ones, is that they still, carry the same sort of interface framework they've had for years, and yet they've bloated so much that the use of sort of algorithmic labels rather than
Algorithmic?
genres, yeah, are feel a little out of date. So, what I mean by that is if you scroll down one of these streamers and you'll get something like shows to watch with the wife, or shows with strong leading guy, or shows with dog in, and these sort of algorithmic things, they don't really work in the way that I think we tend to search for stuff. Because
No.
really, you want to, like as you say, you're looking for classic British films. You're looking for that more specifically than films set in London with quirky guy, which could be from any era, and that might fit in there, but other stuff in there that won't fit because that's not what you're looking for. So I think in a weird way they need to perhaps think about shifting how they catalog and categorize, because I just don't feel it really works in
No.
the way it should.
It's weird you should say set in London with quirky guy, because one of the movies I saw was actually Bloodbath in the House of Death that has Kenny Everett in it.
Well, that's it. And I think again, this is the other problem with this is that in a weird way, to get this to work right at this level, you need more of a human touch
Yeah.
and be relying less on algorithms, but having staff who actually sift through and find ways of categorization. Maybe it becomes an approach where there's user inputs where profiles, you'll be putting your profile and you put in things that you are interested in into your profile, and each your family member has a profile, and then it algorithmically works to that. That might be a way around it, but as it is, none of them are very good. Some of the best ones I find are the British streamers, because they tend to actually resist that and do catalogue by films and genres in ways which makes it easier. I think ITVX still does that. I think Channel 4 still does that, and even iPlayer does it to a degree. But yeah, the big sort of owned ones, this sort of attempt to use these algorithms to try and sell you stuff just doesn't really work. And you, as you say, you just end up with a Woolworths, which feels uncared for, uncurated, and really just leaving it up to you to find what you want, which when you're paying for that service feels a bit like, you know. But anyway, so what was that? Doctor Who, you said?
That's all for this week. We'll be back next time. Until then, it's goodbye from us.